Strolling down a pebble-strewn path that runs along the roots of Pikes Peak. You take a fork in the road toward the Anselm Society Digital Pub. Inside is a raucous conversation on the arts, faith, and the potential of a dinosaur theme park that would not end badly, fatally, with, carnage. In the corner table by the fire are 3 people. One of them is suggesting that metal and fiberglass building materials could be the key instead of ancient strands of DNA. That's me, your co-host, Mandy Houck. Welcome to Believe to See, a podcast of the Anselm Society Arts Guild. Here at Believe to See, we explore the relationship between faith, art, and storytelling. Our goal is to connect the great story, the great stories, and our own stories so that we can better understand what it means to live with a Christian imagination. So first, let me introduce my co-host, Christina.
Giggling in the introduction yet again.
That's fine, and you made me giggle too. Wow, you have the power. So would you go to a dinosaur theme park, provided that the dinosaurs in question are made of metal and fiberglass?
If they're made of metal and fiberglass.
Yeah, not
actual DNA dinosaurs. Jurassic Park, just too seared in my brain.
I know. Mm-hmm. Me too.
Amazing, but.
Yes, I agree. Well, today is a very special sort of roundtable interview hybrid.
I agree.
Because Christina and I have the absolute honor to chat with someone that we chat with often, but not in this specific context. You might be familiar. Some of you, I don't know, some listeners, do you think, Christina, they're going to be familiar?
I don't know.
Are they going to recognize the voice?
I mean,
maybe.
He always refers to himself as like the grumpy old man, but I just don't.
It's true. They might know. They may be familiar with our podcast founder and co-host. Give it up for Matthew Mellema.
Whoa. Wow. Kind of hard to come back from that sort of intro, but thank you.
Were you okay with how hard I trolled you with the strolling?
I was not at all okay with it, but
that's good.
It's fine. I've accepted that. Yeah.
So if you don't know why I did that, you are not you need to listen to our podcast more regularly because Matthew has been critical of my particular version of the opening.
I really care about the syntax, the order of the prepositions.
Yes, we know, dear. Anyway. So, on September 10th, 55 years ago, I was born. On September 10th, a week or so ago, Red Rex was born. Woo-hoo!
Wait, my book has the same birthday as you?
It does.
Whoa.
And side note, same birthday as my daughter Emmy because I had her on my 26th
Well, there
birthday.
we go.
So thank you for doing that. I know you did it on purpose.
There we go.
Thanks for that. So Matthew, our listeners are familiar here and there along the way of your journey writing this book, but it's here. It's in our hands. It is actually in Christina's hand right now, and then she just handed it to me. So
it's crazy, right? Like longtime listeners will know I've been talking about this sort of off and on, just as in asides here and there for a very long time, and now it's here. It's an actual book with like pages and words in it. It's crazy.
Can you give us the title, Matthew?
It is called Red Rex, and it is available on Amazon, Bandersnatch's website.
And as you all know, I personally would prefer that you buy on Bandersnatch's website because Jeff Bezos doesn't need more money. But then you need to review it on Amazon.
There we go. Wherever you buy it, it's fine. Just leave a review on both Goodreads and Amazon. And yeah, it's the craziest thing when you type in Red Rex or my name into the Amazon search bar, my book pops up, which is mind blowing.
And can we talk about the cover for a minute?
I would love to talk about the cover.
Who designed the cover, Matthew?
My brother, Brian Mellema, designed the cover. So he's a professional book cover designer. Like
that's handy.
That's his day job. So that really comes in handy. And, me and him have been sort of working together on little projects here and there. But he agreed to design the cover
and
for the book.
Illustrations.
And each of I think there are 29 chapters in the book, has his illustration. And I'm super happy with how it turned out. He tried to give it like an old-fashioned like woodcut look.
Like a line cut.
Absolutely achieved it. They are brilliant illustrations.
And I think it looks great. So there's cover, 29 illustrations for each of the chapters, also a map, and I'm just super happy with it.
And can I just say, any book with a map in it, I'm already there. I love books with maps. Even as a child, the 100 Acre Wood, the maps, I would just sit there and look at the maps. I love maps. And little known fact, which is about to be widely known because we have, a legion of listeners. The title character, what's his name? Karthus. The title character, the image of him is Brian, your brother, modeled him after himself.
That's right. That came out at the launch party, which was this past weekend. And Mandy, you were kind enough to do a Q&A during it. And Brian told me, as sort of an aside before it happened, like, hey, you know who I modeled your main character after? Like, who? Me.
Yeah.
So
and the T-Rex is modeled after you. No, I'm just kidding. Little known fact.
But, apparently the only person with the heroic enough countenance for my main character was himself. And now that I know it, I can't unsee it whenever I look at the main character. 100%.
After you told me that, and I had not met him before that night, but it's very clear, so it's cute. Yeah. So what was that like unboxing the book?
It was really surreal because, again, I've been mentioning to all you listeners that I've been working on this for a while, right? I had the idea a very long time ago. Then I've been sort of tinkering with it for a while.
Can you tell us how long? Do you know about?
Oh, yeah. I got the idea when I was a freshman in high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then
for this particular story?
For the concept.
The concept. Okay.
The specific idea I've been working on, I got the idea for like 10 years ago. I've been working on it in earnest for a few years, and sort of off and on. I have a day job. I have, family,
4
all
children.
That stuff. Yeah. But I've been working on it for a long time. So to see all of it in I'm holding it in my hands, opening the book, and it's like, I remember typing that sentence onto my computer, and here it is in a book. It was really surreal.
Yeah,
that's cool. Because when I read it, I don't even remember how many years ago it was that I edited a fairly early version.
Yeah.
But maybe 4 years ago or more.
Yeah, it was an earlier version of it, a version that was basically twice the length of this current one. That's back when I was just transitioning from writing my nonfiction book.
Yeah, the memoir.
I had this memoir, then I had this crisis of art that I presented to the Arts Guild, and y'all helped convince me to go fiction, so I went to this.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But the cool thing for me was, as I read this, because I just right after Christina and I each got an early copy, not an early copy. What are they? And it's not an
early review
reader copy, but we just got copies before the general public because we begged for them.
I think it's an early review copy.
Early review.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had it. I took a birthday trip to New York with my daughter, and so I was able to read Red Rex on the plane.
Oh, fun!
It was awesome. But what was really cool for me is I edit a fair number of books, and somehow I ended up in the fantasy realm. I'm in that loop. So most of the books I edit are fantasy. And Matt, I have to tell you, I remembered viscerally so many things. I'm like, I totally remember the Rex and and I remember it was really cool to me that it all came back to me. And I did recognize things that hadn't happened in the version that I edited or whatever.
That is very cool, because the version you got, like you mentioned, it was an earlier version. So it's kind of that version that you edited, I kind of chopped it in half. Mm-hmm. And so like the first half became this book, and then the second half I'm hoping will become like books 2 and 3 in the series.
Oh, we'll get to that.
So a lot of what you reviewed is similar to that.
Yeah.
But I would not have expected you to remember it because you edit so many books. So thank you very much.
I would not have expected me to remember it. And so that was really cool. And that is a testament, not to me, but to you and to the power of the characters you've made. And I'm being totally serious. Like, even if I didn't know you and love you as my friend, I seriously... I was like, wow, Karthus lives in my brain. Okay.
Can I
ahead.
just have you, for the podcast listeners, Matthew?
Yes.
Can you just give the genre, the age range?
Yes.
And I would just love for that to be right there.
Excellent question.
That is a good sort of table setting question. Thank you, Christina.
Yes, of course.
So this is a middle grade fantasy novel. So middle grade, I'd say the core demographic be like, 10 to 13. You could extend to like 8 to 15 or whatever. Like my son's in 3rd grade. He can read this and it's just fine. But it is a middle grade fantasy. So it takes place, I try to set it in history, right after the Third Punic War. So I think it's like 163 BC or something. It's a hidden island off the coast of like Spain and Africa where dinosaurs still exist. And this culture has grown up where instead of horses and dogs and cows, they have dinosaurs. And that is sort of the premise. And then there's this poor kid, Karthus, who's a mere stegosaurus herder, whose dream is to go to Koganry, the school of dinosaur riding, to make a name for himself. But little does he know, after getting to Koganry, his adventures have just started. ...
I should have asked you how to say Koganry. I was saying Koganry.
I was saying Koganry too.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
That's I can see why you would think that. Yes.
You're just making it even more exotic.
I will say,
as Christina and I are prone to do. We are just exotic.
I will say, I'm guessing y'all have had this thought. Probably a lot of listeners who write and do other creative stuff have this too, where these things have just lived in my head and only in my head for so long that having people like say them out loud is really throwing me off.
Especially incorrectly.
Like I came up with the name Karthus on my own, and like other people saying is like, why are you saying it? That's just supposed to be in my head. So,
next thing you know, like these next generations are going to be naming their kids Karthus.
And no one's going to name their kid Hano.
Well, okay, so Hano is different. So okay, so
That's
listeners,
an ode to Hannibal, right?
So here's the thing. So I tried to make this historically accurate.
Did I say that right? Is it Hano, not Hannah?
You did. Okay. So
I guessed that right too.
So Karthus, he lives on this island. This island is called Cosmosa. And Karthus has grown up there as a native Cosmosan, a mere stegosaurus herder. When he gets to the school, his best friend, his cool friend, is named Hano. And Hano is a refugee from Carthage. Mm-hmm. So again, like the story after the Third Punic War, Hano gets there. I actually wrote a short story explaining how that happened, which you can get for free on my website. But
what's your website?
MatthewMellema.com.
What?
Well, there you go.
But I tried to make it, reasonably historically accurate. So I tried to make the description of the Third Punic War, reasonably accurate. Turns out that when you're looking through Carthaginian history, every other character is named Hano. So there's Hano, Hannibal, and Hasdrubal. Like, those are the three names you can have. Okay?
I have seen all three of those.
So I looked at them all. It's like, well, I can't name him Hannibal because there's the famous. There's
we don't want to have anyone for dinner.
And the Silence of the Lambs guy.
Right.
But he is related.
Hasdrubal just doesn't have the Hano. It's like, it's easy to say, it's easy to pronounce.
Feels like a teenage name.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. And again,
like,
cool.
Yeah. It's actually historically accurate. So it is perfectly plausible that a Carthaginian of his station would be named Hano.
I love it. Well done.
Very, very. I didn't know there was so much. Wow.
Okay,
it's a good thing you like research.
Well, okay, good. I'm glad you were going to say that because I think since we're on the topic of kind of the distinctions of this book and what it is and who it's for and what it's about, I also want to pay homage to / draw attention to / ask Matthew about the footnotes.
I love the footnotes.
This is something that you don't generally see, first of all, in a lot of fiction. Second of all, in YA fiction. And the only time the only time I've ever seen it done was in Andrew Peterson's novels, which was only, did he write those like 8 years ago? The Wingfeather Saga, I don't remember. And sorry, Andrew, I know you're a friend of the Anselm Society, and I can't remember when your book debuted. But you were the first, YA author that I had ever heard of doing footnotes. And Matthew, you have followed suit, and I love it.
Well, thank you.
So I need you to talk about that.
I wanted to ask about that too, because I want to know, because to me, a middle grade fiction book, one of the benefits of it is it can be a read aloud by the parents, or it can be a read alone by the kids, depending upon their age. And I was wondering, how would you even advise that those be addressed for a read aloud?
Yeah, because I think the story is way richer with the footnotes.
Absolutely, especially because you have 2 footnote authors.
That's right. So let me start with the 2 footnote authors.
We've asked too many layers of questions.
So I, for a very long time, have loved frame stories, right? So the story within a story. So
that's the definition of a frame.
Yeah. So
story.
a popular example is The Princess Bride, the movie and the book. It's the story, Wesley Buttercup, but it's told by the grandfather telling the story to his grandchild, right? So it's story within a story. So I wanted
Or Ever After. I love that one.
Yeah. So Red Rex is along those lines, where at the very beginning there's a quote unquote translator's note where fictional me is explaining the story of how I found this manuscript deep in the tunnels of Oxford, and how and then I'm making this case that the manuscript is genuine and this place actually existed. So that has been very fun, and I'm trying to do extra stuff on my website and YouTube channel, just add extra color to the world. So in this fictional version, there's fictional me who's writing footnotes in the text, and this fictional aristocrat from Victorian England named Sir Alfred Lemon, who's the one who found the manuscript and translated it.
But he's kind of a kook.
So he's this sort of Victorian windbag, and also a kooky conspiracy theorist. So I tried to have different footnotes in different voices. Some of them are me explaining the dinosaurs in my voice, and others are Sir Alfred Lemon in this very pompous Victorian aristocrat thing, and explaining the world.
You nailed it, because when I read the footnotes, so when I read the translator note, quote unquote, at the beginning, I could hear your voice in my head. And when I read the Matthew Mellema footnotes, as opposed to the AL footnotes, I heard your voice in my head. But I seriously want you to know that I did not hear your voice in my head when I was reading the narrative. I didn't. And that's a credit to you, because it's first person as Karthus. So I wasn't hearing you unless I was supposed to be. And that's really, I knew I would like the book. I loved the book. I really did.
Well, thank you.
And Christina's right. The footnotes make it a very distinct thing.
Well, thank you.
Because there's no footnotes in Charlotte's Web.
And I will say I wanted the footnotes, and I had them in all the early versions, because I love footnotes. Listeners of this podcast know one of my favorite books in the world is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. One of the many things I love about it is the voluminous footnotes about the magical world.
Voluminous. I love it.
So I've always loved footnotes in different sorts of things. So I wanted to have them, but when the folks at Bandersnatch Books, my publisher, shout out to Bandersnatch, you've been great. When they decided that they wanted to publish it, I sort of went in thinking okay, well, they're probably going to want me to cut the footnotes, which is fine. That's a concession I'm willing to make to have, but they let me run with it. And I've been very grateful for it, because one of the reasons, apart from just me liking footnotes, I've been trying to write with this reader in mind, this sort of bookish, really curious, middle grade reader. So almost picturing me when I was that age. And when I was that age, I would have loved to have the footnotes, the extra insight into the world, because I just would like to know more. So that's what I've been trying to do. So the footnotes either give extra information about the dinosaurs, or the broader world in general. So
And there's jokes. I mean, don't skip the footnotes. Some of them are, it's not just that, but like some of them are really funny.
yeah, so it gives me a chance to like give extra stuff about the character of like the Sir Alfred Lemon, like pompous aristocrat, or like fictional me, and the like this extra level that you can do. So I am so grateful that the Bandersnatch people let me run with it, because I've had a lot of fun with them.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And I mentioned this at the launch party, I could not keep track of the number of nerddoms, as we would say, that you have incorporated into this book, because we know Matthew loves dinosaurs. He also loves history, also loves heraldry and symbolism.
Laughing at the heraldry,
and mythology, and how many
and world building.
How many nerddoms did you get to, like, how many itches did you get to scratch in your nerddom, I don't know, obsessions?
Yeah, it's true. Like
It's packed. It's packed. I love it.
So I remember when I was in college, I realized something, like with the classes I took, because I was an English major. And I remember I had these classes that I took where it was a subject that I didn't find particularly interesting, but it was the professors, like, it was their subject. They friggin' loved it. And I realized that those were often the best classes, because even if I didn't love it, hearing it from a professor who loved it really, that like seeped into me, right? And some of those were really good classes. So these are things that I really love. Like the research for this book was not hard at all, because even if I wasn't writing a book, I would be researching about dinosaurs.
Was it hard to leave stuff out? That's why you have a website.
I had, well, that's the thing, right? I had to stop myself from researching it at some point, because like I could just keep reading about dinosaurs and like ancient civilizations forever. So eventually it was like, okay, stop, Matt, just write the book. You're good.
Yeah.
But it is the sort of stuff like I would research about the Third Punic War for fun. So the fact that I get to use it in the book is just an added bonus.
That's fantastic.
I love that. Yeah.
To me, what's hilarious is seeing, like, knowing you and seeing your personality come out in plot, like, twist. I'm sorry, not plot twists, plot elements.
Yes,
So-
absolutely.
Yeah, so we've had Matthew speak eloquently, or not eloquently, on the podcast about how he does not love writing about male-female relationships. And the fact that this young kid wouldn't even look at the girl he liked for like what? Like an entire year?
Oh yeah, the crush element.
Yeah.
The crush element in the book is
Fantastic.
brilliant.
Oh, it was so good.
So on the plane, my trip was with my daughter Bethany, and the only thing that I made her look at was like a little paragraph that had to do with the crush. That you just nailed it. That was awesome.
You all know this, right? Because you've both written fiction, and I'm sure a lot of listeners have too, where it's considered kind of, it's not the done thing to make your fictional character just like you. Right. So you don't want to change them up, so it's different. So I tried to do that with some ways with the main character.
No, but the crush was
and again,
you.
yeah, like Karthus is the main character. The story's told in first person. So I tried to change him in some ways, but I will say the way he responds to his crush. That's straight Matt. If you want to know middle school and high school Matt, how he responded to the girls he had crushes on, that's straight Karthus right there.
I was picturing Matt with the frosted tips, which you have mentioned on LinkedIn.
Which were fashionable back then.
They were fashionable.
So fashionable.
But yeah, the way that I...
Didn't Justin Timberlake have them for a while?
Oh, yeah.
Why do you think Matt had them? Hello. Gotta model himself after JT. No, I will say, I did... Okay, so to revise my earlier statement where I said I only heard your voice in the footnotes, I did picture you when in the crush things. That's true. Anyway.
There was one more though. If I'm just gonna put a bookmark in that, ha ha ha, no pun intended, because I want to come back to this other element that I saw Matt in his book, but I can't remember what it is now. But it's very funny, at least I think it is. So
okay, well, hold on.
If I
to
remember
that.
it, I'm gonna hold on to that thought.
Okay. Well, now you have to remember because
I just mentioned it.
the listeners.
Well, you're
I know.
asking this question, Mandy.
I'm asking-
Christina's
yeah.
processing. You can
Yes.
just like see the loading screen
That's
over
right.
her head.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So your dedication, I know you didn't even tell your mom that you were dedicating it to her.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Bold move. Love that. Good job as a mom. Good
Right.
job.
Yeah.
But in the dedication, you mentioned that she still has
Can you read the dedication?
the
Is that
story.
going to be okay?
No,
Oh.
because you have my book.
Oh, I
No,
have
Matt
it.
has
Or
it.
Actually.
he has my
Matt has
book.
it.
I'll read it.
Matt can read his own dedication.
So the dedication is to Mom, who still has the dinosaur story I wrote when I was 5.
Yes. And so please tell us, what was that dinosaur story?
Can I also just say, well done? Like, to say something so big with so few words. Like, seriously, you know, as a mom, Mandy, like,
Oh, yeah.
you know, like, you see all of emotion in that one little
Oh,
short
yeah.
sentence. Well
So
done,
what
Matthew.
was that story?
Yeah, so the story, I wrote it when I was in 1st grade. Maybe I was 6, but the overall thing stays the
Whatever.
same. So
5 sounds
when I was
better
in
in
1st
the
grade, our teacher
dedication.
did this like cutesy thing where we'd write little stories and then she'd like print them out and like staple them together into books, and it was very cute. And my first big story that I wrote, and I really went all out for 1st grade levels, was about these cool teenage kids who fell through this portal and went to like deepest, darkest like rainforests of Africa, and they found dinosaurs. And I thought that was so cool.
It is
so I
cool.
talked about them finding a herd of triceratops and escaping. And
That's really amazing as a 5-6-year-old.
Yeah, it is.
well, I was very, very motivated. And yes, my mom has meticulously kept a lot of the stuff I was writing.
Well, yeah, because at your launch party, she went up there and had your 1st grade report card
As
with
only
her.
a mom can do.
As only a mom can do.
That's so
And all along, your teachers were like pointing out that you loved writing. So that's just really cool to see that thread. So what other dinosaur stories did you write? Like, was that the main thing, or as you wrote from 5 on, was it
Okay.
largely fantasy, largely dinosaur? What's the through line here?
I'm very glad you asked this question.
Oh,
so, so here's the origin story of this book. And it's real. It's going to sound made up, but it's real. So when I was a freshman in high school, they had this like TV movie adaptation of Dinotopia. And I don't know if the listeners are familiar with Dinotopia. I never read Dinotopia, but I saw like commercials for it, and the artwork. First of all, if y'all aren't familiar with Dinotopia, at least do a Google image search, because written and more importantly painted by James Gurney, it's this sort of fantasy island where dinosaurs still exist, and the people live in this sort of like this utopian world of peace and tranquility with talking dinosaurs. And the artwork is phenomenal. Like, I am such a huge fan of James Gurney. So you'd like have these people, it was sort of like Renaissance era, it looked like. So they'd be riding on dinosaurs. They're like festooned with all these like ribbons and banners, and people would be riding on them. They're going through these like different towns. And when I saw that as a kid, I was like, this is amazing. It's like the coolest thing I've ever seen. So that's sort of like stuck in my imagination. And then when I was a freshman in high school, they came out with a movie adaptation of it, and I was so excited for it. It was like, this is going to be amazing. I can't wait for it. Then when I saw the movie, I was like, I don't like this.
Was that your first, oh no, they messed up the book I love
The weird
experience?
thing is, I hadn't read the books at that point. I just seen
only seen the
I had just seen the artwork, and I
Right.
loved the artwork. I still love the artwork. Again, listeners,
Yeah.
Google image search James Gurney Dinotopia. Can't recommend highly enough. But I didn't like the movie adaptation, and I've since read the books. The books are like the text of the books are totally fine. Paintings are extraordinary.
Boy, fine
But-
is not really, I wouldn't go
They're
further.
good. They're good.
Okay,
Like
okay.
No,
not-
they're lovely.
Yeah, yeah. I did not care for the movie adaptation, and the reasons I didn't like it, again, this is me as a 14-year-old, okay?
Frosted Tips?
Frosted Tips.
Okay.
I didn't like, one,
Still can't
that
talk
the
to
dinosaurs
girls.
could talk. Like, dinosaurs could talk. What
That
the
is
heck?
weird. Like, how did they even decide what
And
voices?
2, that Dinotopia is like this peaceful utopia where no one ever went to war. It's like, where's the fun in that?
Yeah.
So I had this idea, it's like, what if there's civilization like Dinotopia, except their actual dinosaurs couldn't talk, and they friggin' went to war. Yeah. So I spent most of high school making doodles of this world in like my notebooks, right? So like I designed like the armor, designed like how
that's so cool.
how would you fit a dinosaur for war? So like doodling this during algebra class. And I'm just sort of fiddling with this. And then like in college, I start fiddling with it again. I somehow persuaded one of my professors to make that my honors thesis.
Wow.
No way. Are you serious?
It was a very early version of it that
impressive.
bears almost no resemblance to it. But I persuaded him to do it, and he let me do it.
Wow.
And that's the lawyer, Matt.
Yeah, and then it sort of goes
Persuasion.
dormant for a while. Then in law school, I kind of went back to it because I was like, in law school, all this stuff, all this law stuff, so boring. I want dinosaurs. So I went back to it. That's when I finally hit on the key story idea that the book became. So the world is back to like 2001, but the story itself is a little, goes back to Matt in law school.
That's cool.
That is really cool. I love that. So you mentioned Dinotopia. I know you also love How to Train Your Dragon, which
Yes.
I do feel there's some How to Train Your. I meant to say this at the launch party and I didn't, but I do feel there's sort of a How to Train Your Dragon meets Harry Potter sort of vibe.
Yes.
That's reductive, but
You know, that's a really good point that you say that, Mandy, because the way that I was describing your book to Brian after I had finished it, because I've told you this, but my son Edmund, who's 8.5, is dying to read it.
Edmund's the best.
He's so amazing.
he is going to love this
great.
book.
Oh, he is. But he, anyway, so I was describing it to Brian. I was like, it's just this great little band of misfits.
Yes.
Like at a school being the heroes, the unexpected heroes, like Harry Potter. It's just this like lovely world that any kid that age would just be all about.
And they could see themselves in it.
Exactly.
I think that's what's huge.
And I think that was huge. That's why Harry Potter was such a big deal,
Mm-hmm.
is that all the kids that age saw themselves as the misfits, but also as the unexpected heroes, right? And I think that's part of the draw of your characters, is that none of them would be the heroes well,
They're not Marvel superheroes.
they're not Marvel superheroes. None of those kids would look at themselves in the mirror, except maybe Cypria.
Maybe Hannah.
Maybe Cypria would.
Oh, yeah,
She's
true.
pretty self-confident and she's very
that's,
pretty.
That's the main character's crush.
Yes,
Yes.
it is. She's
Don't spoil
she's-
it. No, just kidding.
I mean, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
From the beginning.
I don't know. I thought
Poor
Hannah was
Karthus.
more confident even than Cypria, but
That's true.
Yeah, actually, you're right about that. He was overconfident. That's true.
Well,
that's
yeah.
true. That's definitely true.
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
But you are absolutely right. Like it's kind of a basic take, but I'm a
it's such a basic take.
huge fan of J.K. Rowling, right? And again, that's not saying much, but I reread the Harry Potter series as often as I can, right? And because, like, again, kind of a basic take, but J.K. Rowling's fantastic. I think she's an incredibly talented author. I love her mystery books. Like, I'm currently rereading all of her Cormoran Strike mystery books just because I think she's fantastic. But yeah, obviously Harry Potter plays a big role in that. Just the sort of magical, sort of fantastical school. So the fact that it's a school means it's relatable to like middle
I don't
grade
know that
kids.
you said that. Yeah, it's a school. Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
So you know, kids will be able to identify with a lot of the school aspects, even though this takes place in like 150 BC and it's a dinosaur riding school. It's still relatable. But
I mean, what kid wouldn't want to like trade their regular school for a dinosaur riding school? I mean, really.
Exactly.
I mean, our kids, you know, I'm sure they're going to a beautiful, wonderful charter school. And if they were told, do you want to go to a dinosaur riding school instead? They'd be like, yes!
Exactly. So it's a perfect formula because it's relatable, but still fantastical and aspirational. So that it definitely draws a big part from that.
But, you know, I was actually, this hadn't occurred to me before, like a minute ago, but the whole, the idea of like a group of kids who each have different gifts and different flaws, to me, that goes back to Narnia. So even though the Pevensey kids, they weren't going to a school, that whole that aspect of having a collection of people, young kids in this case, who are discovering who they are and what their gifts are and how they can be heroic and how they can't be, and therefore they need their sibling/classmate to help them. That community aspect, maybe that was invented by C.S. Lewis. I don't know.
Father Christmas also, gave them these unique gifts, unique to their personalities and their strengths and their weaknesses, which was really cool.
That is true. But I mean, they came in as themselves and then they were enhanced. I mean, the gifts as far as like the vial and all that. But as far as their personalities and who they were, even in England before they came to Narnia, they came in with those. Right.
No, absolutely. And obviously, as an Anselm Arts Guild member in good standing, I'm a huge fan of C.S. Lewis and Carl Narnia, and that was a big influence on this as well. And like you were saying, Mandy, so like one of the premises is they get into the dinosaur riding school of Coganry, and the team that Carthus is on, the school is divided into different teams.
Yes.
And the teams need to compete with each other in dinosaur riding competitions to win this prestigious prize, right? And the Carthus team needs to win to stay in the school. And Carthus is put on a team with all the other kind of like misfit characters, right? So Carthus...
It's Rudolph now. It's the island of misfit toys.
Exactly. He's on the island of misfit toys. So Carthus is put on there because he's like the little, like the hick from the sticks. He's a little stegosaur herder. He's not fancy or from an aristocratic family, and all the other kids are foreigners, so they're from different cities on the island. They're not from the main big important city.
They're not from the good city.
Exactly. So each of the kids from the main city on his team, they have different skills and abilities that help them, but they're still together. They're like united as misfits, right?
And what the thing that I think is so compelling is that Carthus doesn't believe that his gifts matter. Mm-hmm. And that is the biggest, to me, the draw, and I think what is going to be so meaningful to kids who read this and parents who read it to their kids, is all the other, like how many, he basically has imposter syndrome, I just realized. That's what it is. He has imposter syndrome, and he doesn't recognize that his purpose matters as much as theirs do, because he spends a lot of his time wishing that he had the gifts that other people had. And so one of the themes in your book is really just that, like, community is a necessity. We can't fight the battle on our own, and yet we are integral to whatever community we're in.
Yeah, one of the sort of the story arc I give Carthus, the main character, is, so again, Carthus begins the story. He's like this lowly stegosaurus herder, and he's trying to get into the dinosaur riding school so he can like escape like the little podunk town and make it on the big time. And he has this attitude like, okay, I'm an orphan. This family I'm staying with doesn't care about me. I'm on my own, so I just need to look out for myself. It's all up to me. So then the story arc is learning how to trust other people, trust his friends, trust that these people actually are his friends and actually have his best interests in mind. And that is one of the battles that I try to convey, right? It's that Carthus is trying to do everything on his own and assuming everything depends on him, where he needs to learn to depend on other people for other things.
Okay, that brings me to...
But at the same time, he doesn't think he's good enough. So there's that tension. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. I was actually in that. One of the turning points for Carthus is this strange character named Vaz. And I am so intrigued by this character.
Vaz needs his own website.
He does.
I want to hear from Vaz. Vaz knows all.
Vaz knows all. Vaz, the crazy preacher. Like,
crazy preacher man, street prophet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, I don't know. I'm not spoiling, but I saw the foreshadowing. I saw some of the references. But I'm also like, okay. Why this guy? Why is he here? why does he play this integral role in Karthus's life? And he sort of seems like out of nowhere, but also strangely important the whole time. And yet also, but where did he come from and why? And so anyway, but every time he appears, it's important and obviously a turning point. So
also,
why
I
Voss?
just realized Voss means voice.
It does.
Why did I not realize that until just now?
Good job. Voss.
I was on an airplane. That's my excuse. Go
I
ahead.
didn't realize it either.
Maybe
But he was in it. Anyway, I'm sorry. That's
But
just
yes,
lame
tell
that I
us
didn't think
about
that.
what you can tell us without spoilers. Tell us inspiration for Voss.
Is it possible to talk about the prophet without spoiling?
Absolutely. So one of my things, I think this is a hobby horse that maybe listeners of the podcast have heard before, is seeing like religious characters seen as, very negative light. So if you're in a lot of like movies, books, if you're the religious character, usually you're seen as either a hypocrite or a coward, right?
Sure.
Or a lunatic.
Exactly.
Yep.
So I thought it would be fun to have this character who is sort of the crazed street preacher.
Mm-hmm.
You may pick up some not so subtle John the Baptist vibes.
What?
I know, it's very subtle. But the sort of crazed street preacher who is actually a speaker of truth and who is actually sort of the voice of, like the voice of truth to Karthus, who's able to get through to him, even though most of the people in the world be like, oh, this is like the crazy guy. He just causes trouble. But he's actually the one who is able to get through to Karthus, to get him to look outside of himself to other people and to rely on other people. So yes, I really like Voss, and
that's really interesting. The way you are characterizing it is that Voss helped Karthus look to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I see what you're saying, but I also see Voss as showing Karthus his part to play. Because to me, I see Karthus as wanting to be heroic, but not believing he has enough in himself to do it.
Oh, see, that's funny. I don't see that. I see him just wanting to get past and make it. And so he doesn't want to stick his head out or his neck out.
I think that's what I just said with different words.
Okay.
I think you're both right.
Because he wants to be something, but he doesn't think he can.
Yeah.
Isn't that what you...
I was thinking he wants to attain security, a place, something he's dreamed of, but doesn't want to risk like making the wrong move. So I don't see it as much as a thing of confidence. I mean, it is confidence.
I really think we're saying the same thing with just different words.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, and so for me, the turning point, he has to not only... I think for me, he sees the other people as like, oh, they all know what they're doing, and I don't know my part with them. But then at the same time, that's an obstacle to him trusting them as a group.
Yeah.
And there's so many times in the book where he has an impulse to do or say something, but he's like, yeah, never mind. I have no place. And it's the whole imposter syndrome.
Yeah. And first of all, I actually do think you're both right. And it's actually very nice to hear you both of you say what you were saying. That's what I was trying to convey.
Don't worry, girls, you're both right.
Yeah, like I said, I think we're just using different words.
Yeah, so one of the things I've been thinking about a lot sort of in my life is this, it's throughout like the Christian tradition where, a lot of sin at its fundamental level is the heart turning inward on itself, right? So that I think is Karthus's key problem, especially early on in the book and throughout the book, where he's learned because he has this really bad childhood. He's, just has this menial job for a family who doesn't care about him. He's like, I'm just going to get mine, right? I just want to succeed on my own, looking inward. And when he looks inward, just at himself, he sees, once he gets to the fancy dinosaur riding school, I'm inadequate.
I'm not enough.
I'm not cool and a great fighter like Hanno. I can't ride pteranodons like Castrid can. I'm not good enough. And then at the, before like the climax, like I made this huge mistake. I screwed everything up. It's just all about me. So it takes this
That's very compelling, by the way.
It takes this crazed preacher to sort of the person most other people think is like the crazy person to like jostle him out and look upward, look outward from himself.
And your mistakes don't negate your value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a big theme too, where it's just not just emphasizing your own mistakes. It's able to accept other people's forgiveness and to move on.
Yeah.
Yes,
like
that
if
was such a mature move as
if
a
you're
writer.
If you're crushed by your mistakes, then what? Then nothing.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. And so one thing I was wondering as I was reading it, I was wondering, like, what does Matt like hope for his readers? Like, did you picture your readers at all? Did you think about like, oh, here's this kid reading this book and what do I want them to feel and learn?
Yeah. And I think for me, like a big part is kind of remembering what I was like when I was the age of my target demographic, right?
Yeah.
And like, well, if I could go back in time and speak to that kid, what would I talk about, right?
Yeah.
So a big part of that is, I was kind of tempted to just sort of like, again, turn it as like, it's all about me. I'm sort of lost in my own head.
Yeah.
And thinking that everything depended on me. I wasn't good enough because I'm just looking at myself. It's like, okay, look at other people. You can rely on other people. If you make a mistake, let other people forgive you. Move on. Don't assume that everything depends on you and that you'll never be good enough.
Yeah, again, that was such a big move, I think. I was so mature. Like, it was like, yes, you did do something, like, that they would have trouble forgiving because it could be interpreted as wrong in a certain way. So I love, Matt, that you even used the word forgive.
Yeah.
Because that is not like the cool thing to do. The cool thing is to like be like, it's like, oh, well, we all make choices and, it's okay, dude, but like you actually went there with like, he had to feel sorry and they offered forgiveness. He rejected it and then had to actually accept forgiveness. And that is a hard thing for, I think, a lot of us to do as humans, especially young teenagers.
Right.
Like, so that was just very mature and I really appreciated that. I actually really expected the first, sorry, am I making you? Sorry. He's blushing over here, friends. No, actually, I have no idea if he's blushing or not. But I loved it when the first offer was made for forgiveness. He didn't take it. I was like, what? Didn't see that coming. And that you broke a cliche. It was very well done.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that is, again, I'm sort of picturing like, what would middle grade reader version of myself need to hear?
Yeah.
And that's what I would need to hear.
You're loving your
So it's what I still need to hear. And it's, I think, what hopefully a lot of us need to hear. It's that when people forgive you, when God forgives you, it's accepting that. It's not like, oh, no. I know y'all forgiven me, but no. What I did was so bad, I won't allow myself to be forgiven.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
also like okay, I'll let you forgive me, but I'm still like not valuable
And I'm going to punish myself
until I've learned something more. Because the point is Karthus is needed because he has unique gifts. And that's not a selfish thing to realize that I am needed in the community. That's not selfish to realize that your gifts are important, And so for him, the simultaneous realization that I need all of these people and they need me is huge.
Yeah, and also that not allowing yourself to be forgiven is actually a form of selfishness.
It's
Yes.
arrogance.
Yeah.
It's arrogance. Didn't C.S. Lewis say that? I feel like that's a C.S. Lewis thing.
I feel that too. I think
I
that's
can't
probably
remember
right.
the exact quote, but I feel Jack is out there saying, no, I really do, because it really is arrogant. Like, oh, okay, my standards are higher than everyone else's, including God.
Might have forgiven me, but I hold
can't because
Self-hate is a form of pride. Yeah. Yep.
So the fact that you pack all that into such a fun story.
And a YA story. I'm sorry, not YA, middle grade.
Middle grade.
That's what I meant. Sorry.
And yeah, I love it. And another thing that I wanted to mention is sequels. Because speaking of footnotes, I love that one of the things you do in the footnotes is, oh, there's more to say about this, but I don't have space. Wink, wink. Or I'm still researching this. I'll get back to you. Very well done, Matthew Mellema.
I'll let you know if I find anything.
So you set up a lot of potential for more books, mostly with the footnotes. So I think what can we do how close are you if we said, Matthew, release that tomorrow? Do you have completed manuscripts? How close are you? Give the people what they want, sir.
Yes. So I have been working on this for quite a while, and the first step, if y'all want the rest of it,
I do.
I would recommend, first of all, ordering Red Rex on Amazon or Bandersnatch or wherever.
Order several copies. Give them out for Halloween.
Most importantly,
that's a good idea.
That is a good idea.
There you go.
You have lots of money, don't give candy, give Red Rex.
Dear listener, please understand me here. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to write a review on Amazon or Goodreads.
Or both.
I'm serious. I would rather you write an Amazon review than buy the book. I would buy a book for you if I knew you were going to write an Amazon review.
And Barnes & Noble and everything.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be fancy. You don't need to write like a college thesis. It can be like a sentence. It's so helpful. Like, it helps the algorithms on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or Goodreads. You can use the same review for all of the sites.
Cut and paste. Copy paste.
And this goes beyond me, too. This is something I've been trying to make a point to do better on. I think a lot of us do. If you support one of the best concrete ways to support an author is to write a review.
Yeah.
That really is the case. But to your larger point, assuming everything goes well and I can, write sequels to this, I would love to. And I'm actually, earlier today, I was working on book 2.
Yes!
I have book 2. I have a decent draft of the whole thing, and I'm going through and doing a polishing draft. I have a pretty detailed sketch of book 3. In an ideal world, whether it'll happen, who knows? I'd love this to be 7 books. I kind of have a 7-book thing that's a little bigger.
I thought it was a trilogy.
So it could be a trilogy. I'd also love to make it 7, but again, we'll see.
7.
And dear listener,
dear listener,
if you would like this to be a full 7 books,
help us.
Buy the book, but really, write the review. It could be a sentence. It could be 5 words. It could just be emojis. Just write the review.
That's true.
Is there a dinosaur emoji?
Right.
Oh, there's a T-Rex emoji. I've been using it in a lot of my social media.
So just T-Rex love. That can be your
My
review.
go-to emoji combo is the T-Rex emoji and the cross swords emoji.
I was going to say the swords, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yes, I do have a plan. I have a pretty concrete plan for the first 3 and then a decent sketch of the next 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
So, I don't know, Christina, did you have other stuff? Because there's just so much in this book.
There's so much in this book. I know. And I had that one thing, and it was so funny, and I can't remember. So
we're just going to have a follow-up podcast.
Yeah, I honestly would just say, just as a closing endorsement, I think if you have a kid in this age bracket, honestly, I think girl or guy, boy or girl, I think if they like adventure stories, if they're like Harry Potter things or Mysterious Benedict Society, like that kind of.
That's one of Emmy's favorite series.
Then I think this book is definitely for them. If you're an adult who like those things, I think this book is also for you.
Well, honestly, let me just tell you. So this is one of the things that is hilarious about me ending up in the niche of, or the world of fantasy as far as being an editor. I don't read fantasy. I just don't. I never read fantasy.
Is that God saying something?
But when you are right, but I guess
even laugh, girlfriend.
I guess C.S. Lewis is fantasy. What am I talking about? But anyway, whatever. I don't read modern fantasy, or I didn't. But when as a freelance editor, you make a name for yourself in circles. And so you end up in that circle. And so typically that's what I edit is fantasy. And for me, I full disclosure, I read Red Rex because I knew we would be talking about it on the podcast and because I love you. And I knew I would enjoy it, but I didn't know I would enjoy it. Bethany was like, shut up, because on the plane, because I was like laughing and like, I am 55, people. I'm 55 years old. I'll get over it. Maybe right before I turn 56, I'll get over it. But this book, we call it, it's middle grade fiction. Read it anyway. Like, it's so much fun and it's funny and I really enjoyed it, and I'm not just saying that because I love you.
That's so
right,
precious.
Christina?
I love it.
It's true, though.
It's true, but I'm still liking that you say it. I love it.
It's true. No, it's true. Like, I don't even read. I don't care about dinosaurs. I don't care. But I care about Karthus and Hana and Hano. I said his name wrong. And Cypria.
Well, it's cool too.
Because it's a human story. It is a human story, and that's the key, right?
Well, yes. I mean, that goes back to finish my endorsement, which was basically saying you and I know Matt as a person.
Yeah.
And we know him as a quality person.
Yes.
A person of good character.
Now he's blushing.
And now he's blushing.
Oh, I'm blushing.
And he's a good father, and he's a good husband, and he's a good leader, and he's a great Christian. Like, he's a good man. And so...
And it all comes through in the book.
It all comes through. And so that's the thing, I'm endorsing the story, but I'm also endorsing the author. And I know, of course, if you are a parent and you have concerns about what your children's reading, I just want to say no concerns.
No concerns.
This guy just fits beauty and goodness and adventure into a book that an adult or child would enjoy.
Yep.
Well, so thank you.
You are 100%. So welcome.
Well, I am blushing so much now, but thank you.
So,
also, it is true. I didn't realize this until I went to the Dinosaurs Museum, but in the author's note, Matt says that he grew up in the land of dinosaur bones, and it is true.
It's true.
Because Colorado is one of the very few places
of dinosaur bones.
that actually has most of the dinosaur fossils found in the United States.
Yep.
It's
right,
true.
Matt?
Oh, it's absolutely true. The name of the book is Red Rex, the very first Red Rex fossil discovered by modern science in Golden, Colorado.
There you go.
That's right.
So the next book needs to have the word golden in it.
I'm working on that.
Yes.
Well,
it's going to happen.
Things are winding down here at the Anselm Society Digital Pub. We are shooing the dinosaurs out the door because they're drinking too much. No. A drunk dinosaur, that would be a problem. Anyway,
or not, depending on if we were trying to escape. You know what I'm saying?
It's true. If they were on our side. The fire is down to embers. The customers are trundling home, and you have polished off your final glass. And you are going to order Red Rex on bandersnatch.com.
And write the review.
And write reviews. Once again, Believe to See is a podcast of the Anselm Society Arts Guild. If you have a minute, we'd love for you to rate and review the show on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We will catch you next time.